Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 14th episode of the story in which Naruto is adopted at a young age. How far can he go if someone actually supports him? How will he influence the elemental nations? This story is from a writing bunny. Please support him, her. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Fortress Ruins. Gaara saw that their situation was grim. The 4 Jounin fighting him were really good. His basic sand shield couldn't repel all their attacks. And if he wanted to make it stronger, he would have to draw on Shikaku's power. That was something he'd rather not do. Though his ability to resist the demon's bloodthirsty impulses had increased, if he tried to use much of its chakra, he would lose control. And losing control in this situation would be bad. He hoped that Naruto would finish off his opponent and come to his aid, but if it wouldn't happen within a minute, he'd be forced to let his tenant out to play. Then he felt the demonic chakra in the air increasing and it wasn't coming from him. He shot a look at Naruto. Just as he expected, he saw the blonde boy enveloped in a shroud of red yuki, a tail waving frantically around him. What he didn't expect was the purplish-colored goo clinging to him. What was that stuff? Gaara didn't know, but it looked like it was causing the boy great pain. That wasn't good. Gaara wanted to help his friend, but he was too busy staying alive. In the moment he took to assess Naruto's situation, one of the IWA Jounin created a lance of rock and pierced his sand defense, almost reaching Gaara's body. There was a shout as one of the IWA ninja was hit by Naruto's thrashing tail. One more enemy down. Good. But it still wasn't good enough. Naruto seemed to have lost it and was clawing at himself, trying to get the goo off. If he was at least flinging it at their enemies, they could get out of this mess, but Naruto wasn't coherent enough to do so. Unless a miracle happened within the next 10 seconds, Gaara was going to unleash Shikaku. Just as the red-haired boy counted to 9, a miracle did indeed happen. A wind-charged kunai flew straight through the head of one of the IWA Jounin, killing him on the spot. That left them facing only 2 enemies. And their savior revealed himself. Baki-sensei. Gaara sighed with relief. Now that it was 2-on-2, the situation was looking up again. One of the IWA Jounin turned around to deal with the new threat. That gave Gaara enough breathing space to catch the last one in his sand and squeeze him until only red paste remained. He then moved to help Baki, but there was no need. The Suna Jounin was just finishing off his opponent. Gaara, Baki said, his eyes darting from his student to Naruto. Where are Temari and Kankuro? Medical tent, the boy replied. Baki nodded, looking relieved. We should get out of here, the Suna Jounin suggested, shooting wary glances at Naruto. He had enough experience of what happens if a Jinchuriki loses control and Naruto seemed completely out of it. He could turn on them any moment. We have to help him, Gaara said. Naruto, now in two-tailed state, was still struggling in vain to get rid of the purple goo. Some of it had evaporated now, burned away by the demonic chakra, but the fumes still clung to the boy. Gaara wasn't sure what could he do to help, so he decided to start simple. He sent some of his sand into the goo, letting it soak through it, and then made it fly away. Much to his dismay, the goo didn't stick to the sand, but returned to Naruto. This was really bad. What else could he do? Naruto, a new voice called. The boy in question didn't seem to hear it. The Suna duo turned to look at the newcomer. It was a tall man with very long spiky white hair. Baki recognized him immediately. Jiraiya-sama. Baki called in relief. Can you calm him down? Well, I can block the flow of Kyuubi's chakra, the toad sage scowled, but then nothing would protect him from the venomous last curse. The Sannin recognized what jutsu had been used on Naruto. He had seen a comrade die of it during the Second Shinobi War after a dying IWA Jounin had decided to take the Konoha squad with him. Back then it had been over so quickly he couldn't do a thing, just watch as his friend's body dissolved in the purplish stuff. But Naruto was being protected by the Kyuubi's chakra, so he had time to analyze the situation and come up with a solution. He pulled out a blank scroll, an ink bottle and a brush and began to draw symbols on it. He could only guess at the exact composition of the corrosive goo, but as a seal master he could seal it away even when he didn't have all the details about it. It took him almost a minute to finish his work, a minute Naruto spent trashing around, clawing at himself and howling in pain. If Jiraiya weren't such a seasoned ninja, he wouldn't have been able to concentrate in these conditions. When he was finished, he wasted no time activating the seal. He waited with bated breath whether it would work. He couldn't be sure if he took everything into account correctly and how would the presence of Kyuubi's chakra affect the seal. But it worked all right. He just had to keep dodging Naruto's wildly swinging tails as he pumped more chakra into the seal and the scroll drew all the goo and fumes into itself. Finally it was all gone. But Naruto didn't seem to notice, he still clawed at his own body and trashed around as if he was still in pain. Jiraiya sighed and pulled a pre-prepared seal from his pouch. Now he just had to put it on Naruto's stomach, which wasn't going to be easy, considering the boy refused to stay still. "Can you hold him down?" he turned to Gaara. In response the sand shot forward and enveloped Naruto in a cocoon. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki roared in anger and struggled to get out. He almost made it, but Jiraiya was faster. The sealing tag was slapped right over the seal on his stomach. The red chakra cloak disappeared in an instant. Naruto collapsed to the ground and stayed there unmoving. There was blood all over him. "Is he still alive?" Baki asked. Considering how badly Naruto looked, it was a valid question. Jiraiya leaned over his godson and checked his vitals. "Yes, but he is bad off," he answered. "He needs a medic quickly." Baki just looked around. They were in the middle of the ruins of the Iwa fortress and though there weren't as many rock ninja around as there were at the beginning, there were still too many enemies left. "We still have to fight," Baki stated. "We'll get Naruto to the medic tent," Gaara said. His words had a sense of finality to them. Jiraiya looked at the battlefield that separated them from the nearest medic tent. "We'll have enough enemies to fight on the way." Outskirts of the battlefield throw. 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 A shout of pain, then another. Tenten frowned. She had thrown 4 kunai and hit only twice. She needed more practice. That is if she lived long enough to get more practice. The Iwa ninja were pressing them badly. They had been forced to leave their original position when one of the rock nins aimed a fire jutsu at it. After that they just did their best to stay alive and if possible kill some Iwa shinobi. It was easier said than done, especially the second part. They were just genin and no matter how hard Gai-sensei trained them, this fight was still above their level. Their only piece of good luck was that there were many genin in the enemy army too. Throw. Throw. Tenten reached into her pouch for another kunai, but found only air. She grimaced. She had gone through her stack faster than she had imagined possible. And she had brought as many kunai and shuriken as she could carry. It looked like her specialization wasn't really suited for large-scale battles. Fortunately she had counted on this possibility. She reached deeper in her pocket and pulled out a scroll. She unrolled it and smeared her blood on it. Several packets of kunai fell out. She was restocked again. But those were her last. She'd have to make sure every one of them counted. She threw the first kunai into the skull of a ninja who was trying to sneak up on Lee's back. It was a good hit. Another went into the thigh of one of the 3 rock men who were ganging up on Niji. Another kunai well used. The third she stabbed into the neck of a woman who tried to sneak up on her. Then she pulled it out and threw it at a man who looked like he wasn't paying attention. He dodged. Tenten grimaced. This was a waste. It made her think about what was going to happen once she ran out of ammunition completely. Then she'll be useless. Though she knew some taijutsu, as all Guy's students did, she wasn't a prodigy like Niji, who was currently closing enemies' tenketsu with his juken, and she never trained as hard as Lee, who was kicking away IWA ninja with the exuberance of youth. The green-clad genin had removed his weight some time ago and yet was barely avoiding harm. She'd be lucky to just stay alive. She wished she had thought to bring some sake. If Lee got into his drunken frenzy, they might yet get out of this alive, but without it their chances seemed bleak. Just as she thought it, Rock Lee kicked one IWA ninja in the stomach and his foot sunk in, revealing that the target was actually a mud clone. As soon as Lee blinked in surprise, the mud solidified, capturing Lee's foot inside. The taijutsu specialist immediately tried to kick the clone into pieces with his other foot, but he was too slow. Another rock shinobi snuck upon him and aimed a crushing blow at his head. Lee tried to block with his forearm, but he didn't quite make it. The blow still glanced his skull and he slumped to the ground. Lee! Tenten shouted desperately. The green-clad genin was twitching, but he was shaken severely and an easy target. Niji just grimaced. He saw the fate that had befallen his teammate despite facing the other way because he had his Byakugan active. He knew that he was going to follow him soon and so would Tenten. Despite being able to see in every direction, he couldn't defend in all directions. He had tried to learn the kaiden, but he was still far from being actually able to perform it sufficiently. Spying on the members of the main house training was easier said than done when he was spending a lot of time on missions instead inside the Hyuga compound. And even when he was home, the main family didn't practice the kaiden that often. After all the months of observation he only just began to understand how the technique worked. He also gained some understanding of Hakurokujuin Sho, but he still wasn't able to actually perform any of the techniques, at least not enough to use them on a real enemy. Tenten threw two kunai at the man standing above Lee, but he blocked them both. He was just too good for them. She couldn't do anything against him, yet she had to do something or she'd watch her teammate die. Just as she was about to try something desperate and stupid, there was a loud shout that drowned the roar of battle for a moment. Hedgehog's fury. Something flew through the air at high speed, crushing everybody in its path. The IWA shinobi looked around in surprise. For many of them it was the last thing they ever did because another shout sounded. Tearing wheels. Two discs rolled along the path created by the first jutsu, cutting into the ninja shaken by the earlier attack. The few people who were still moving after that were quickly hit by a snake-like blade. Our spirits blaze the brightest. A girlish voice cheered. There was a moment of shocked silence. Then, our youthful rivals. Lee exclaimed. He was back on his feet now. After all, Gai-sensei hit much harder. If it aren't the Konoha kitties, the Suna Chunin with the giant black feline said. Killed many IWA ninja yet? His armored teammate asked as he prepared to throw his giant spiked steel ball on a chain again. No time to count, Niji answered, striking one of his enemies in the stomach with a juken strike. The man fell to the ground too. I lost the count after the first 5, the girl with the 4 long braids and a bending sword admitted sheepishly as she engaged another enemy. So what are we going to tell our sensei? Tenten asked. She used the brief respite to grab the weapon holsters of several fallen IWA nin to restock her own dwindling supply. That we fought with the power of youth. Lee exclaimed, kicking a rock ninja in the face. Hey, that sounds good, Akira realized. Yuka-sensei might actually buy it. Gai-sensei might too, Tenten said throwing her kunai. So it's a plan. Toshiro smiled as he swung his giant morningstar around. Let's fight together with our blazing spirits or flames of youth or whatever high and we might get out of the special training. That sounds good, Tenten smiled. Now there's 6 of us, nothing can stop us. Whatever, Akira shrugged. Just don't count on us saving you again, kiddies. Near the fortress, Naruto. The two kunoichi of Team Tenzo had been elated when they had felt the ominous cloud of Kyuubi's chakra over the battlefield again. It meant that Naruto was still alive. But not long after that it had disappeared again, and it had happened rather abruptly. They urged their group in the direction of Naruto's last known location. Moving across the battlefield was much easier than it used to be. There were much fewer IWA ninja running around now. On the other hand, there were much fewer Konoha and Suna ninja as well. It was hard to tell who was losing Shinobi faster, but Hana's nose was telling her that there were more IWA corpses strewn around than Konoha and Suna ones. But that might be her wishful thinking. There were still plenty of enemy Shinobi around. Like the group that currently moved to block their path. They seriously annoyed her. She barked an order to her 3 dogs and a moment later there stood 3 perfect copies of her, all of them with the Shikyaku no Jutsu activated. Gate na, she shouted. For spinning discs launched at the IWA squad, scattering its members in all direction. Several managed to dodge, but before they could do anything else, they were tackled by a wooden horse-like puppet. Another was struck by a swift lightning-charged blade. 2 more were hit by a gust of wind, knocking them down. Soon a small figure appeared above them, speaking about the hopelessness of their situation before slicing their throat. "We have pretty good teamwork now," Keed remarked. Hana nodded, slowly picking herself from the ground. Her head was spinning. That sometimes happened after performing the Inuzuka clan techniques, usually to beginners, but it had been quite some time since it had happened to her. She must be lower on chakra than she had thought if she couldn't deal with the spin. She tried her best to hide her discomfort, but her teammate noticed it. "Don't exhaust yourself," Hataru suggested. Hana was tempted to snap at her. It wasn't the dumbest piece of advice she had ever received, but it came close. How was she supposed to save her energy in the middle of a battlefield, with her teammate missing, most likely in grave danger? She wasn't going to rest until she saw that Naruto was. "All right." She straightened up, trying to look as confident and fresh as possible, which wasn't much. She considered taking another soldier pill, but her medical knowledge told her what would happen if she overdosed in vivid detail. She wasn't too tired to move on her own power yet. She could pull through. She looked at her dogs. The Himera triplets looked about ready to drop too. She grimaced. If she gave them more soldier pills, the eventual aftereffects would be even worse than in a human. They'd have to do with what little energy they had left, unless they ran into a really dangerous enemy. Though then it might be too late. "You really are exhausted, aren't you?" Hataru observed. The purple-haired kunoichi looked like she had trouble holding her sword in the on-guard position. "You didn't even bark at me." "You don't look any better," the Inuzuka retorted. Her teammate smiled grimly. "We're all exhausted, but we have to move," Genesuke said. "We could ask the IWA ninja for a timeout," Daiki suggested with only the tiniest hint of sarcasm in his voice. Hataru nearly burst out laughing as she imagined the warring parties taking a nap on the battlefield, clad in goofy print pajamas, snuggling together in white fluffy pillows and blankets. "Why don't you ask them to do so?" Ki jibed at the Ayum boy. "They might listen to you." "Why didn't I think about it before?" Daiki asked. This time his voice was dripping with sarcasm. Hana tuned out the Suna team's bickering. Her nose just caught a scent. That was a bit problematic, because the battlefield was saturated with various odors, mixed together by futon techniques. It was confusing her sensitive nose. Whenever she tried to make much sense of it, it made her head hurt. But this time she was almost certain she caught a whiff of Naruto's scent. Now where was it coming from? A few more whiffs gave her a likely direction. She just hoped that the scent of blood and acid and something even worse coming the same way was just coincidence. "He's over there," she pointed. "Who?" "Keed, who paused in her bickering with Daiki, asked. Naruto? Hataru guessed. Of course, Hana confirmed. Let's go. With Guy and Yuku, a quick combination of kicks took care of 3 IWA ninja. They had been low level, but that didn't matter in the competition. Only that Guy now had 3 more points on his score and finally got in the lead. Probably. At least he hoped so. He had no idea how many Yuku got. That thought made him want to redouble his effort, but short of opening the gates he couldn't do more than he was already doing. And if he did that, he would get tired quickly, which could mean that Yuku would outlast him and win the competition, which would be unyouthful. He resolved to step up his training to become more youthful. His flames of youth weren't burning brightly enough if he was having this trouble. He tried to kick another enemy, but his leg struck only air, and it wasn't because the rock ninja dodged. Genjutsu. He knew it well from his countless spars with his eternal rival Kakashi and knew well how to fight against it. Kai, he shouted. The illusion dissolved just in time to reveal the stream of fire heading towards him. Either Yuku was caught in a genjutsu too, or he decided to win their contest in a very unyouthful manner. Guy mentally scolded himself for even thinking about it. Of course his new rival was youthful, it was unyouthful to suspect him of anything else. And now it was his youthful duty to help him break out of the spell. Guy quickly dodged the katan and started towards Yuku. But before he could make 2 steps, his legs sank thigh-deep into the ground, revealing that it was actually a jutsu-created swamp. It refused to let go of his captive limbs and hardened around them to make that sentiment absolutely clear. Guy sighed. Somebody was really good with genjutsu here, probably as good as Kakashi, and they were good with Doton too. But despair was unyouthful. Guy punched the ground around him, trying to shatter it. Instead his fists sunk inside too. It looked like he was screwed. Meanwhile Yuku was having his own trouble. There suddenly appeared an IWA ninja a bit behind him. The Suna Jounin turned around and fried him with a mid-level katan jutsu. This was one of his fastest acting, but it still failed to hit him. The IWA guy was too good at dodging. Well, let's see you dodge this, Yuku thought and ran through the hand seals for a wide-area fire technique. Then he saw the IWA ninja sink into the ground, which was a pretty common tactic for them, but this one stayed halfway up and looked like he was stuck there. Well, that was odd. Yuku turned and spat the fire the other way. There were some small fry IWA shinobi in need of some deep frying. Then he formed another seal. Kai, he called. The trapped ninja immediately changed from somebody nondescript in IWA uniform to his spirited rival Mato Guy. Yuku's eyes narrowed in anger. So somebody was trying to trick him into killing his own comrade? That was disgusting. But he was going to show them what it meant to anger him. His blazing spirits were going to burn them to cinder. But at the moment he couldn't see where the genjutsu specialist was hiding. And Guy was sitting duck, trapped in the ground. Yuku decided to help him first, even if they were rivals. But as soon as he made 2 steps towards him, his feet sank into the ground too. He tried to jump, but it only made him sink further. And then the ground solidified. Now both of them were trapped. Crap. Guy saw his new friend sink into the trap too. So now they were both caught. It was just a matter of time, probably seconds, before somebody turned them into pincushions. He had to do something fast or they were both dead. But what could he do with only one of his arms free? Both jutsu and punching the ground weren't an option. That left only opening the celestial gates. But how many? If he overdid it, he would just tire himself needlessly and might collapse of exhaustion before the battle was over. And it looked like he had to decide fast, because 2 IWA ninja broke cover and were approaching them menacingly. Before he could decide, a wooden construction appeared between them. He recognized it as one of Suna's puppets. The IWA ninja recognized it too, judging by their surprised exclamation. Guy couldn't see what happened next, but then the puppet was withdrawn and the IWA pair was lying on the ground dead. "Look at you," a pleasant female voice spoke with amusement. "Caught in a trap like some academy students." Guy turned around and saw the most curious sight. A beautiful woman in a long and probably expensive kimono, black hair styled in a complicated hairdo, was walking through the battlefield on platform sandals, looking like a geisha taking an afternoon stroll in the park. She was so completely out of place that Guy attempted another genjutsu release before he had to conclude that the woman was indeed there. Yuku didn't doubt his eyes or ears for a moment. "Tiono," he groaned. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" She raised one perfect eyebrow. "Do I look like I'm in need of something? You on the other hand. You were so focused on crushing and frying everything that you completely missed the trap, weren't you?" Not waiting for their answer, she continued. "I always told you, your style is too barbaric. All your might is nothing against trickery." "Trickery is unyouthful," Guy grumbled. Even with his meager social skills he knew that criticizing his rescuer's methods was impolite, so he didn't shout it. "Oh?" Tiono turned to him. "Another barbarian. So pray tell me, how did you plan to get out of there, oh manly man?" Guy punched the ground with his only free hand and it shattered. He knew it would, the chakra turning it into a trap disappeared the moment its caster died. Once freed, he helped Yuku out too. A look passed between the two men. "Our students mustn't learn about this. You could only do that only because I killed that Doton user for you," Tiono pointed out. "And I thank you for that, beautiful flower of youth." Guy bellowed in what he thought was his most charming voice accompanied with a blinding smile. Tiono, a veteran of many battles and a kunoichi who prided herself in being scared of nothing, took an involuntary step back. During her moment of distraction Guy noticed movement behind her. He immediately started after the IWA ninja who tried to catch her unawares. The man dodged Guy's initial attack, but found his face full of an angry scorpion the next moment, courtesy of Tiono. "It looks like you two have excellent teamwork," Yuku observed. He wanted to use it as an excuse to get away. He and Muzitabi Tiono just didn't mix. "And it looks like there's an enemy setting an ambush where you want to go," the kunoichi retorted. "Oh," Yuku said and sent a katon that way. A scream let him know that he hit true. As the rock ninja, his uniform aflame, tried to run away, he was stopped by Tiono's puppet. "You have excellent teamwork too," Guy observed. "Let's fight the rock ninja together." Yuka shot him a murderous glare, but he said nothing. He could see more enemies approaching. "Excellent idea," Tiono said in a tone that might or might not be sarcastic. With her it was nigh impossible to tell. "Somebody has to keep an eye on you two children." And even if they didn't like it much, they stuck together. Fortress ruins. The kunai came flying out of nowhere. Jiraiya almost ignored it, because it wasn't aimed directly at his body, but then he realized it would hit Naruto, whose prone, bloodied body he was carrying on his back. The Sannin dodged and turned to deal with the threat. There was no need to do so. The IWA Chunin was hit by a wind-charged kunai from Baki and quickly finished off by Gaara's sand. The white-haired man nodded at them to thank them and then they continued on their journey. Jiraiya wished he could have one of his toads carry Naruto, but the problem with toad summons was that they had ridiculously sensitive skin. Sure, they were powerful, knew many useful skills and could defeat very strong opponents, but if he was careless and summoned them somewhere dusty, with strange chemicals in the air or even not enough moisture, their skin would begin itching or worse in a few minutes and they would be pissed at him for months. Gamabunta still couldn't forgive him the time during the Second Shinobi War when he had summoned the boss toad to deal with some Suna ninja's boss summon in the middle of a salt desert. If Bunta was to be believed, his skin had blistered and bled and it took over a month to heal completely. So now he was stuck carrying the prone boy on his back, which was limiting his movements greatly. Though Naruto didn't wait enough to slow him down seriously, any fast movement aggravated his wounds, so the Toad Sage had to be very careful while dodging or attacking. Gaara kept offering to carry Naruto in his sand, which made tactical sense, but Jiraiya wouldn't trust his godson to anyone else, especially after nearly losing him. So he made an excuse that if sand got into Naruto's wounds, it would worsen them. He just prayed that they wouldn't be attacked by enemies strong or numerous enough to make him regret it. His prayers went unheeded. Just as they reached the collapsed outer wall of the fortress and relative safety was within sight, they were confronted by a platoon of IWA shinobi, all of them looking very determined not to let them get out alive. He had only a fraction of a second to curse his rotten luck, Tsunade level, before they attacked. The initial hail of kunai and shuriken was followed by a fireball and then a forest of rock spikes sprouted from the ground. Gaara's sand moved to intercept the attack, but could do nothing about the spikes. Jiraiya jumped away. A pained groan from his back reminded him that he really should cut down on the sudden movement. But it was easier said than done when there was a huge mud ball rolling towards him. He moved out of the way carefully, but realized there was a poison cloud in front of him. And yet another flock of shuriken was heading towards him. Hari Jaizu. His hair lengthened and enveloped him and Naruto completely. The rock-hard white spikes blocked the shuriken easily. The mud ball rocked him a bit, but his defense held. The poison gas was more of a problem. He couldn't move his hair until it dispersed and he couldn't do anything about it from inside his cocoon. He could only hope that Baki would have the presence of mind to blow it away soon. Baki at that moment had his hands full with his own problems. He was engaged in a fierce taijutsu battle with an IWA Jounin who danced around his wind blades. The Suna Jounin had no trouble holding his ground, but he saw little chance of winning this fight soon. Gaara couldn't help them either. An IWA Chunin rushed straight at him and when the redhead wrapped him in his sand, the rock Chunin detonated all the exploding notes he had stuffed in his flak jacket pockets. There was really a lot of them. Even Gaara's sand couldn't absorb the blow completely. He was knocked away and landed on the ground. There he lay dazed, trying to make sense of the stars dancing in front of his eyes and the loud ringing in his ears. The blast was so strong that it knocked even Baki down. He was lucky that his opponent lost his balance too, otherwise he would have been killed. As he struggled to his feet, he surveyed their situation. Gaara was down, Jiraiya was trapped in the poison mist and he could find at least 5 enemies still standing. From what he had seen of their capabilities, they were more than he could handle in his current nearly exhausted state. Then the IWA ninja at the back was tackled by a wooden puppet. His comrades turned to see what was going on just in time to see 3 giant dogs pouncing at them. Baki was grateful for the help. Most of their enemies were preoccupied fighting the new arrivals. But one wasn't. He just ducked under the kunai somebody threw at him and sprinted straight to the still dazed Gaara. His sand surged forward to defend, but if the IWA ninja had exploding tags just like the last one, it wasn't going to be enough. Baki moved to intercept him, but his battered and exhausted body refused to move fast enough to be in time. But before he could despair, something white sprouted from the ground, wrapped around his feet and dragged him down. A moment later Jiraiya rose from the ground, his animated hair strangling the IWA ninja. "You didn't think you could defeat the great Jiraiya, did you?" the Sannin scoffed. Whatever the response was, the rock ninja didn't get to say it. He was too busy dying. After that the skirmish ended quickly. With the 5 new arrivals the Konoha and Suna forces utilized their numerical advantage and wiped out the IWA group in seconds. Naruto. Hana cried when she spotted the bloodied form of her teammate. "What's wrong with him?" "He got hit by venomous last curse," Jiraiya answered. "It's a really nasty suicide jutsu. I sealed away the venom, but the damage was done. Anyone else in his place would be dead." Hana could see that. People weren't supposed to be still alive with so much of their skin burned off. She immediately tried to heal him, but she had trouble activating her medical jutsu. She must be even more exhausted than she had thought. "We have to get him to the medical tents," she said. "Tell us something we don't know," Hataru quipped. "But there's a battle around, in case you didn't notice. It's almost over now. They're losing and they know it. So now they're going to become even more dangerous," Jiraiya spoke. "What do you mean?" Keed asked. "They don't think about holding the fortress anymore, just about taking us with them," the Toad Sage explained. "They're beginning to use dangerous and suicide techniques. Some of them are much more powerful than what a ninja of their caliber can usually cast. Just look what happened to Naruto." Nobody really wanted to look at the burnt flesh again, but they still did so. Or Gaara. Somebody blew himself up to get him. "I had no idea somebody could hit Gaara," Daiki spoke, his voice fearful. "Nobody is invincible," the white-haired man shrugged. "But yours Gaara is quite hard to kill," he added when he saw the redhead sitting up, still looking a bit concussed. "We're the biggest targets around here, aren't we?" Genosuke realized. "You're right," Jiraiya nodded. "If somebody took the lot of us out, it would be a huge blow to both Konoha and Suna." "We should get out really fast," Keed said. "No arguing there," the Sannin agreed. "Let's go and be very careful." Battlefield. It was hard to tell when exactly the battle ended. There wasn't any great bang to announce it. But gradually, when a Konoha or Suna ninja finished off his opponent and looked for another, they realized that they had to walk far to find one. Or there wasn't one in sight at all. All the IWA ninja were either dead or escaped. The cost of the victory was great. As the battle was nearing its end and the Iwagakure forces realized they were about to lose, they decided to take as much enemies down as they could. Whoever knew some dangerous forbidden and usually suicidal jutsu, picked the strongest Konoha or Suna ninja they could see and used it on them. Whoever had some explosive tags left, slapped them to their vest and hugged an enemy before blowing them all up. Those who had neither simply attacked with their last reserves of chakra and weapons. They died, but many shinobi of Suna and Konoha died with them. The battle was over, but the nightmare was only beginning. The medical tents were overcrowded with patients. The medical ninja were trying their hardest to treat them, but there were too many and the medics were already feeling the strain. Among them Hana was struggling to stay upright. She ignored the glares her colleague sent her for going into the battle instead of staying behind. She couldn't regret it. Rescuing her teammate came first and she had been able to help a lot. The Himuro brothers' noses had helped them a lot on the way back, warning them of danger even the S-rank ninja in the group couldn't detect so easily. Thanks to them they were able to reach the medical tents without having to fight really strong or numerous enemies again. She had been so relieved when they finally reached the medical tents and could hand the horribly burnt Naruto and still slightly dazed Gaara to real doctors who still had some chakra left. Her relief disappeared when the medic took one look at Naruto and declared him a lost cause, because nobody could survive without his skin, but that man knew nothing about Naruto's regenerative abilities. New skin was already growing beneath the layers of blood and dust. With a little help of medical ninjutsu, Naruto would be alright in a couple of days. After making sure that Naruto was going to make it, she was drafted to help the doctors. She overdosed on soldier pills to muster at least some chakra for her jutsu, and even that energy was slowly but surely running out. Soon she'd be reduced to simply bandaging the wounds, if she wouldn't outright collapse. She definitely would be out of commission comes tomorrow or maybe even sooner. But it didn't matter. Her team was alive. They won the battle. Not everything was alright with the world, but she could hope that it would be. After the battle, when morning came, the Allied camp was still full of activity. Most of the wounded were already taken to the medical tents, but that didn't mean there was nothing left to do. All around the survivors of the battle were searching for their friends and teammates, some of them rejoicing upon finding them alive, others crying openly when they found out their precious people were dead. For once the Shinobi rule number 25 was being broken shamelessly and nobody cared. Close to one of the medical tents, Tiono-sensei was debriefing her team, commenting on their good teamwork and bad combat abilities. She promised them tougher training to whip them into shape, but berated them not to forget strategy, lest they'd end up like certain musclehead excuses for ninja she knew and couldn't stand. Even if she didn't say any names, her team knew who she meant. Her rivalry with Yuku was legendary in Suna. A bit away, Muzitabi Asami and Mitarashi Enko were exchanging tips on being creepy, sexy and scarily creepily sexy. The men who were unfortunate enough to catch bits of their conversation turned pale and ran as fast as their legs would carry them. They still felt that it wasn't far enough. Even if they ran as far as T-Country, it wouldn't be. Right in the middle of the camp, Madogai and Yuku and their teams were deciding the result of their youthful/spirited contest, much to the chagrin of all the other shinobi in the camp who wished they would take it somewhere else. Preferably another continent. So how many IWA ninja have you killed? Yuku asked his students. We lost count, Mizu admitted sheepishly. We lost count too, Tenten said, looking at Gai-sensei apologetically. That's unyouthful, the green beast of Konoha exclaimed. How can we decide our youthful contest now? Yuku nodded. It was bad enough that their own private contest remained undecided. Though if he were completely honest with himself, he'd have to concede that they both lost and Tiono had won. But he disliked the woman too much to ever admit she was superior at anything. How can we prove our blazing spirits are superior? The 3 genin and 3 chunin looked at each other. Now was the time to begin their master plan. We joined our forces to defeat more enemies, Mizu said. Together we were unstoppable, Toshiro added. We crushed the IWA ninja twice as fast together, Tenten said. They couldn't stand against our joined forces, Niji added. Is that so? Guy asked. They all nodded. I'm so proud of my youthful students. And he really was. He and Yuku needed Tiono's intervents to begin cooperating, but their students had figured it out on their own. He hugged them tearfully. The Suna team watched them with pity in their eyes in the moment before Yuku hugged them tearfully. Then they shared a look of commiseration. Your spirits blaze truly brightly. Much more than ours. We old men wanted a contest, but you saw that the way to go is cooperation and friendship. You are going to surpass us soon. The Suna team felt actually proud. So true. Guy exclaimed. Friendship is the youthful way to go. And to strengthen our bonds of friendship, we'll have a youthful training session together. Yes, Gai-sensei. Lee exclaimed, already looking forward to the undoubtedly grueling training. Excellent idea. Yuku agreed. That way our bond will become even stronger and our spirits will blaze even brighter. Everybody else looked at each other in sheer terror. Their master plan had failed. They weren't going to escape the special training no matter what they did. They could just pray that they would survive it. Medical tent Naruto woke in the afternoon. He groaned because his whole body felt as if it was on fire. He opened his eyes a crack and saw a white bed cover and his hand completely covered in bandages. So you're finally awake. Gaara, Naruto recognized the voice. A quick look around revealed that he was sharing the hospital tent with the Sand siblings and 8 more shinobi he didn't recognize. It was really overcrowded. The battle must have been really brutal. Come to think of it, how did it end? He couldn't remember. The battle? We won, the redhead boy answered. Good, Naruto sighed. My teammates? They stopped by earlier. Naruto sighed gratefully. So Hana and Hataru were all right. He just regretted he hadn't been able to help them, even if they didn't really need to be protected. There were many of his comrades who needed his strength and he wasn't there to help them during the last part of the battle. Now what had knocked him out? His mind was a bit hazy on that. He squeezed his eyes shut and remembered. The first thing he recalled was pain. Terrible pain. It almost made him stop, but he persevered. He needed to remember further back to find out what had hurt him so much. There was fighting, some more fighting, blood and gore paraded in front of his eyes, but still nothing told him what had injured him so. Ah, there it was. The Iwa kunoichi and some weird suicide technique. His whole body hurt even more when he remembered that. I'm so pathetic, he said, opening his eyes. Gaara stared at him blankly. Just one ninja nearly took me out. You were tired from the battle, Gaara pointed out. Still, I should have been better, Naruto insisted. You could kill assassins when you were 6 and I couldn't even beat one kunoichi now that I'm 10. My sand helped a lot. Yeah, your sand, Naruto sighed. You know, I feel jealous. You get a kick-ass power from your demon and I got nothing. I got the Kyuubi and it gave me no super ability. It just isn't fair. Gaara didn't know what to say to that, so he stayed silent. I'm rambling like some old man, Naruto shook his head after a while. I really shouldn't be complaining. I got a lot of strength, so who needs some cheap ability? You don't sound very convincing, Gaara spoke. You're right, Naruto admitted. I feel cheated. I know it's stupid. I'll just have to work hard to become stronger. You already are strong. Not quite enough. There was no way to argue that. You can become stronger. We both can, Gaara spoke. You're right, Naruto smiled. He will become stronger. He could only hope that he'd manage it soon enough. The camp the Sand siblings were leaving that day, alongside with most of the Suna forces. Temari and Kankuro were cleared for travel, but Gaara was going to carry them in his sand, much to their mortification. Temari protested that she could walk on her own and Kankuro wanted to ride one of his puppets, but Gaara ignored their protest, saying that they were still injured and he was going to take care of them, like a proper brother should. Naruto, who was finally well enough to get out of bed and had limped to bid them farewell, fell over laughing at their antics. Eventually Kankuro and Temari were seated in Gaara's sand and after a last goodbye the trio took off. Naruto slowly limped back to his bed. He had still a lot of recovering to do before he could train again. Near the battlefield, as soon as he was released from the infirmary, Naruto headed for a clearing not far away from the fortress. His freshly regenerated skin was still overly sensitive, but he didn't let the occasionally painful sensation deter him. The last battle gave him a lot to think about. Among it was prominent the thought that he might have to do something like this again. He really didn't like the idea. There were too many close brushes with death. He knew that he was still alive only through sheer dumb luck. Next time it might not hold. And Naruto really didn't want to die. That brought him to the next conclusion: he was too weak. He could deal with most Chunin no problem, but whenever his clones ran into a Jounin, they got dispelled fast. This wasn't a new realization. He had known he wasn't strong enough to defeat a Jounin without Kyuubi's assistance before, but this battle brought home just how much it mattered. I have to get stronger, he said to no one in particular. And I have to do it fast. He decided that a good way to go about it would be completing his Wind Rasengan, as he called the yet hypothetical jutsu in his mind. If he could do that, he could have torn down the fortress walls easily. He could have shredded all the earth walls and stone skins the Iwa ninja used to defend against his attacks. If he just had such an awesome jutsu, he would be unstoppable. The rational part of his brain was telling him that there's no way it would be so easy, but he told it to shut up. The Wind Rasengan just sounded too awesome to worry about such details as its practical use. And besides, a trump card was exactly what was missing in his technique arsenal. So working on this was the smart thing to do. And if Kyuubi wouldn't grant him some kick-ass power, he'd have to develop his own. At least he could say so to anybody who would ask. With that thought he started the actual training. He extended his hand, palm upwards, concentrated wind chakra and started spinning it. It was a bit easier than when he had first begun his training. Or maybe it was just his wishful thinking. It had been only about 2 weeks and he didn't have the opportunity to train every day. But whether he was really improving or not, he was still at the beginning. The chakra wasn't concentrated enough and didn't spin nearly fast enough. He didn't even want to think about how long it would take before this technique would be anywhere near completion. Was it even worth it? Then he thought about how awesome the result would be. Hell yeah, this was totally worth years of effort. And in the meantime this training could help him improve his whirlwind fist. Probably. What are you doing, Gaki? Naruto nearly jumped as the voice spoke right behind him. The chakra in his palm dissipated. Jiraiya. What are you doing here? Testing your situational awareness. If I were an IWA ninja, you would have been dead already. And you know there might still be IWA ninja around. Yes, Naruto answered sheepishly. But I didn't want anyone to see this. Gaki, you can train in private in Konoha, but not here, the Sannin chastised him. I laid traps around, the Chunin defended. They weren't much, Jiraiya countered. Naruto looked ashamed. So what are you practicing? Or is it a secret? Well. The blonde boy mused for a moment whether he should answer or not. I thought about making the Rasengan from wind chakra. We already talked about it. You have to first master the regular Rasengan before you can add elemental nature to it. Now you mention it, we did, Naruto spoke. But I already mastered the Rasengan. See? He created a perfect chakra sphere in his right hand. Well, that's really good, Jiraiya praised him. You can start adding elemental nature to it now. But it's something even the Yondaime couldn't do. I don't get it, Naruto frowned. Why do you insist I have to first make the Rasengan and then add chakra nature? That's backwards. I start with the element first and then mold it into shape. That's extremely difficult, the Sannin pointed out. I noticed, the boy grimaced. No progress? Well, yes, Naruto admitted, but I barely started. I still think you're going at it the wrong way, the white-haired man insisted. You should start with the shape first and then add element. But that's something even the fourth couldn't do. So maybe that's the wrong way to do it, the boy speculated. Maybe, Jiraiya shrugged. When you work on a new jutsu, you never know what's right and what's wrong until you try. It took Minato 3 years to complete the basic Rasengan. This is bound to take even longer. I know, Naruto sighed. Even if I reduce the time using shadow clones, it's still too long. So what do you want to do in the meantime? Jiraiya inquired. You can't concentrate on a jutsu you might not even complete and neglect other training. That would get you killed, especially during wartime. I know. I train other things too. That's why this is going so slow. And you need to improve fast, the white-haired man pointed out. I know, Naruto sighed. So what do you say I'll teach you an awesome jutsu? Really? The boy perked up. He was always all for learning a new technique, especially if it was supposed to be awesome. Really, the man confirmed. It's something very few people can do. So what is it? Naruto asked with stars in his eyes. Instead of answering, Jiraiya removed the giant scroll from his back and unrolled it dramatically. The white-haired pervert just couldn't help it and had to do everything dramatically, though now it seemed appropriate. Naruto peeked into the scroll. There he saw a list of names written in, was it brown ink? The boy decided that it was safer to think so. Under each name was a handprint. Naruto saw Jiraiya's name among them. Impressed, the Sannin asked. You should be. This is the one and only Toad contract. Really? Naruto's eyes were shining with excitement. Summoning contracts were rare, almost legendary, and highly prized. Those who held them chose very carefully who else would be allowed to sign them. Naruto had never expected to as much as see one. Of course, Jiraiya nodded. What are you waiting for? He asked when Naruto was just staring at the scroll in reverence. Sign it in blood and then make a handprint under it. I can. Naruto still couldn't believe his good fortune. Of course, Jiraiya nodded. Thanks. Naruto laughed and sliced his palm. He quickly signed his name and pressed his palm underneath before Jiraiya could change his mind. Now the hand seals are boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram, the Toad Sage explained. Smear some of your blood on the palm you had signed the contract with and then slam it onto the ground. Watch. He summoned a man-sized red toad. Did you catch it? Naruto nodded. Now it's your turn. Naruto took a deep breath, cut his finger again, smeared the blood on his right palm, concentrated his chakra, performed the seals, slammed his right palm into the ground and watched what would happen. There was a cloud of smoke, a rather small one. When it dispersed, it revealed a tiny tadpole writhing on the ground. Naruto looked at it in dismay. Looks like you have no talent for this, Jiraiya commented. The big red toad croaked. It sounded as if it was laughing at Naruto. The boy dismissed the poor tadpole. I'm going to do it, watch it, the Chunin said. He tried the jutsu again, this time using more chakra. The result was the same. Again, Naruto scowled, dismissing the tadpole. 3 times is the charm, so he was going to do it now. He used as much chakra as he could muster. This time he summoned a bigger tadpole. He stared at it with disbelief. Why wouldn't the jutsu work? He was about to ask when a small green toad suddenly appeared and spat out a scroll. Jiraiya unrolled it and read it quickly. His face turned serious. I have to go, he said. Continue training. Bye. And then he was gone and the toads too. Naruto sighed. Now he had nobody to ask for tips. He returned to summoning tadpoles. Training Naruto grunted in frustration as the tadpole disappeared in a puff of smoke. At least this one had hind legs, though it wasn't much of a progress. What was he doing wrong? He had the hand seals right. He was putting in enough chakra. He was sure he was putting in more chakra than Jiraiya did to summon his man-sized toad. His control was adequate too. So why didn't a fully formed toad appear? He'd think that with all the effort he put into it, he should get one at least as big as a dog. Even if said dog was one of those tiny floor brushes with legs some rich ladies like to keep. He wished he could ask someone to help, but with Jiraiya off to who knows where there was no one else who would know how this particular summoning worked. And even if he felt desperate enough to actually read about it, there was no library around he could find a book or a scroll in. He had no choice but to figure it out on his own. Back to basics, he thought. So what was he doing wrong? He got the hand seals right. He pushed in enough chakra. And, hey, that might be it. He didn't really envision what the chakra was supposed to do and will it to do so, because he had no idea what exactly it was supposed to do. If he could just ask Jiraiya, but the Toad Sage would probably make him figure it out on his own anyway. So what should he imagine the chakra doing? Forming a toad? No, Kuchiyos no Jutsu didn't create toads, it summoned them. Took them from one place and made them appear in front of the summoner. But how exactly was he supposed to envision this? He had no prior experience with space-time ninjutsu. Well, aside from summoning tadpoles, he thought looking at the small puddle the water dripping from the tadpoles left on the ground. He could use this as a guide. He concentrated his chakra again and slowly performed the required seals. This time he thought hard about what was supposed to happen. A red toad was sitting near a puddle. He calls on it. The place near the puddle and here become the same spot. The toad appears here. He slammed his bloodied palm on the ground. Kuchios no jutsu. This puff of smoke was noticeably bigger than the previous one. That seemed promising, but Naruto didn't dare to hope, just waited for what the cloud would reveal. The being inside was red. It was also small. Tiny, indeed. But as Naruto examined it carefully, he saw that it had 4 legs and no tail. It was a fully formed toad. Finally. Naruto punched the air in excitement. "Yo," the toad said. "So you're the new summoner I've heard about?" Naruto looked at the toad closely. It was about as big as a regular toad, bright orange with deep purple markings, and it was wearing a blue vest. From its general appearance and manner of speech, Naruto deduced that it's a very young one and a boy. Probably. Now that Naruto thought about it, he realized he had no idea how to tell apart male and female toads. That might lead to some awkward situations in the future. Not that Naruto had a problem with awkwardness. "Hello," the blonde boy greeted. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto." "I'm Gamakichi," the toad replied. "Do you have any sweets?" I have just some field rations," Naruto answered. "Well, that's good too," Gamakichi shrugged. He looked at the young summoner eagerly, obviously expecting a treat. "Really?" Naruto asked dubiously. "Did you ever have a field ration bar before?" "No," the tiny toad replied. "I can't wait to try them." The expression on his face made it clear that he wouldn't take no for an answer. "Alright," Naruto said, reaching into his pouch for some ration bars. He hoped that his summon wouldn't start hating him the moment he tried them and tasted just how yucky they were. "Here you are." "Thanks," Gamakichi exclaimed. Then he shot out his really long tongue, grabbed the ration bar that was about as big as his body and swallowed it whole. Naruto just blinked. How did it even fit inside? Did he see that right, or were his eyes playing tricks on him? "It's great," Gamakichi smiled. "Have more, bro?" Naruto blinked. Again. Now his ears were playing tricks on him as well. Never ever he had heard about somebody actually liking the taste of field rations. Sure, many people praised their nutritional qualities and were grateful for them when they were starving, but they all swore they would rather eat their shoes than another ration bar. But this little toad was staring at him hopefully, sincerely wanting another taste. Naruto couldn't understand it until he realized that Gamakichi was a toad and probably had quite different tastes from humans. "Sure," he said, offering another bar to the small summon. The toad grabbed it, but didn't even try to eat it. Maybe he didn't like it after all? "I have to bring one home for Gamatatsu," Gamakichi said. "He's just a tadpole, but he already eats more than a grown toad. He'll love this." "Who's Gamatatsu?" Naruto asked. "My little bro," Gamakichi answered. "He must be worried. Where did I go? I have to go. Bye." And he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto stared at the empty space he used to occupy for a while longer. He didn't like his summon leaving him like this, and he didn't like his first summon being a useless baby, but hey, he had finally summoned a real toad. He grinned. He finally got the summoning right. Now it was just a matter of some more training before he could summon huge toads at will. He wanted to try right away, but he had already bled enough in the last 2 days. Any more and he'd feel the blood loss. Summoning could wait. He should train something else. Like the wind Rasengan. He started spinning wind chakra in his hand. Konoha. When they returned to Konoha, they saw a figure waiting for them at the gates. "Tenzo sensei!" Naruto exclaimed. "You're alright already. Did you think I'll stay in the hospital forever?" The Jounin smiled. "Our team is complete again, Hana smiled. Her dogs barked in agreement. Still, took you too long, Hotaru remarked. We could really use you in the battle. What was it like? They spent next 20 minutes telling him about it. So where's your sword? Tenzo asked after a while. Wish I knew, Naruto sighed with a shrug. A ninja should keep track of his weapons, Tenzo scowled. Otherwise he's a dead ninja. I was too busy keeping track of incoming jutsu, Naruto replied. Otherwise I'd be a deader ninja. And I couldn't find it after the battle. You still shouldn't have lost it, the Jounin insisted. I'd like to see you try, Naruto grumbled. Did you never lose your sword? No, was the flat answer. You should have known better than to ask that, Hotaru smiled. He's the awesome former Umbu after all. Don't you ever forget it, Tenzo reminded them. Training grounds. When Naruto was training a few days later, he was startled by Jiraiya suddenly appearing next to him. A ninja should keep better track of his surroundings, the Toad Sage lectured. We're in Konoha. Naruto replied. That doesn't mean we're safe, the white-haired man pointed out. I know, the boy sighed. So have you learnt the Kuchiyos no Jutsu already? Jiraiya asked. Yes, Naruto grinned. Show me, the Sannin prompted. Naruto nodded and bit his thumb. 5 hand seals later he slammed his blood-smeared palm on the ground. Kuchiyos no Jutsu, he called. There was a small puff of smoke and Gamakichi appeared. Yo, he greeted cheerfully. Got any sweets? Naruto threw him the candy he had prepared just for this occasion. Whenever he trained the summoning, he usually got Gamakichi instead of some actually useful toad. It was a bit frustrating. But he really liked the tiny toad. Hello Gamakichi, Jiraiya greeted. Last time I saw you, you were just a tadpole. Hi, Jiraiya. Have you any snacks? The Sannin searched his pockets frantically. Naruto sighed and pulled out a bag of sweets he had began carrying around for just this occasion. Thanks. Gamakichi didn't care where his food came from. So what are we doing today? Jiraiya just wanted to see if I can summon. Oh, the toad looked a bit disappointed. Then I'll bring these to Gamatatsu. He grabbed the bag of sweets and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. I guess it was alright, Jiraiya assessed Naruto's performance. Now you just need more training. But don't annoy the toads by calling them too often. Alright, Naruto nodded. So what do you want? Why do you think I want something? Jiraiya made an effort to look hurt. You usually do when you show up. So what is it this time? You're right. The self-proclaimed super pervert sounded serious for once. I came to tell you we're going on another mission. And it's a big one. Another big action? Naruto groaned. So soon? Yes, Jiraiya confirmed. Remember how I told you about the Raikage's competence being questioned? Naruto nodded. Well, he decided that the best way to show his prowess would be to start a new offensive. And he can't afford to lose, so he's going all out. He even sent B with the attack force. B? You might have heard of him. Jinchuriki of the Hachibi. He's known as the perfect host. And it's true. No one else can control their bijou as well as he does. How does he do it? Naruto asked, thinking about his trouble with the Kyuubi. If he could make the beast obey him. Nobody knows, Jiraiya shrugged. So Kyumo is attacking Oto? No, the Sannin shook his head. As they don't know where Oto is either, they did the next best thing and attacked us. That sucks, Naruto commented. So I'm supposed to fight B? No, the Toad Sage shook his head. You'd get slaughtered. Killer B is an elite jounin even when he isn't using his tenant. Leave fighting him to others. So what do you want me to do? the boy questioned. You know what it means that the Kumo's latest attack is all out? Jiraiya countered the question with another question. That it's really strong and hard to stop, his pupil guessed. Well, that's unfortunately true, but it has another meaning. Can you figure out what? Naruto thought about it for a while. Where did he suddenly get so many ninja? Now you're getting it, Jiraiya smiled. He weakened the garrison of Kumogakure. So we're going to show him why it was a bad idea. Are we going to siege Kumo? Naruto asked fearfully. Fighting the perfect host of the Hachibi suddenly didn't sound so scary. We don't have enough manpower for that. We're going for a simple hit-and-run attack. Sneak in, cause havoc and as much damage as we can, get out before they can retaliate. That still sounds dangerous, the Chunin remarked. It is, Jiraiya admitted. But now you've signed the Toad contract, you can get out of there using reverse summoning. I've never done that before. It's easy, the white-haired man reassured him. You don't have to do anything. The Toads will take care of it. I still don't like it, Naruto frowned. You don't have to like it, Jiraiya sighed. I don't like it either, but unfortunately it's an order. Kumogakure. The journey to Kumo was mostly uneventful. They traveled through Fire Country to Hot Springs Country, where they took a ship to Water Country, another ship to another part of Water Country, before boarding yet another ship to Lightning Country. They changed their appearances in every port to make tracking them impossible. At first Naruto was excited about the prospect of sailing for the first time in his life, but the novelty had quickly worn off. All the sea travel was boring, considering they had to maintain their disguise as civilians constantly, except for that one time a storm came and nearly sank the ship, but they arrived at their destination safely. Then followed the long walk through the mountains towards where the village hidden in the clouds was. Naruto supposed that under other circumstances he'd enjoy this trip, but now he couldn't truly appreciate the scenic beauty of the landscape when he expected a cloud ninja to jump out from behind every rock. As they came closer to Kumogakure, the ninja patrols on the roads increased. It took all Naruto's self-control not to jump every time he caught the sight of a flak jacket. But that would have blown his disguise, because the persona he was currently using, a young peasant girl, shouldn't be able to see them at all. They stopped for the night in a roadside in a few hours' travel from their destination. They didn't exchange any words. In case somebody was listening, Jiraiya just gave Naruto a nod. They have both gone over what should be done now many times before. They knew by heart what final preparations to infiltrate Kumogakure they had to do. Naruto didn't have to do anything. His disguise had been determined good enough and his travel pass also capable of holding out even under a close inspection. Jiraiya had it harder. He was too well known to risk just walking towards the main gate, no matter how carefully he concealed his appearance. But he wasn't Konoha's spymaster for nothing, and he knew several tricks for how to get into places he wasn't supposed to be in, and the guards were expecting him to try. A minute later the tall man was gone and there was only a tiny toad on the floor, no bigger than a fingernail. Naruto found it fascinating how somebody as huge as Jiraiya could hide in something so minuscule. A part of him wanted to learn the technique too. A bigger part of him was scared that somebody saw them, somebody felt the chakra used for it, and that Kumo ninja were going to barge through the door any moment now, no matter how much had Jiraiya assured him that the technique was undetectable. When nothing happened for 10 minutes, Naruto's racing heart finally slowed down to normal rate. He still wasn't calm, but at least he wasn't so nervous even a civilian would notice anymore. He could embark on the last part on his journey. He picked up the tiny toad, hid it in his sleeve and walked out of the inn. He felt very exposed without Jiraiya's reassuring presence at his back. The Kumo patrols in the area intensified as he came within sight of the hidden village. He kept expecting a kunai in his back any moment, and it took all his self-control not to show it on his face. He almost sighed in relief when he reached Kumo's gates. Though it meant that the hardest part of the infiltration was right before him, the waiting was over and that made him feel much better. Though the waiting wasn't quite over just yet. There was a queue in front of the gates and Naruto had to wait before his turn came. He quickly scanned the situation and realized that there were two lines, one for pedestrians and the other for merchants with carts full of their wares. He stood in the pedestrian line and waited. It was a form of torture, but he endured. Just as it was almost his turn, he got a bit of a lucky break. One supply cart was just declared clear by the guards and waved inside. Naruto made an exaggerated stretching motion and accidentally brushed his hand on the cart. He felt a movement within his sleeve, as the toad carrying Jiraiya recognized the opportunity and jumped onto the cart. It immediately disappeared under a roll of cloth, so nobody saw it. Then the cart passed the gates. One half of infiltration successful. Now only he had to pass through. It turned out that he had worried for nothing. His traveling pass, either forged or stolen, he didn't know, was good enough to fool the guards. A young girl didn't seem like a threat to them either, though one of the Chunin manning the gate decided to bodily search him with a perverted leer. Naruto cringed, but endured. His transformation was solid and he had no weapons or any other contraband they might find suspicious. Then a Kumo Kunoichi shouted at the man searching him to stop perving, because there were still a lot of people to check, and Naruto was released. He didn't bother to hide his sigh of relief, it was expected of a civilian in his situation. He thanked the woman for saving him and walked on. Sneaking into a hidden village during wartime really should have been harder. Not that it had been easy, but the fact that they had gotten in at all proved that Kumo's security just wasn't enough. But that worked in their favor. Well, Kumo was going to up their security soon, but it was going to be too late for them. Stop the idle thoughts, it was time to concentrate on the mission. He was still in very hostile territory and the slightest mistake could cause his death or capture. He had to stay on guard. With that thought Naruto finally entered Kumogakure. Once he walked through the gate, he could finally see the village hidden in the clouds in its full glory. And glorious it was. Naruto had to marvel at the difference between it and his home. While Konoha had a warm, homey feeling, Kumo had majestic beauty. Everything was grand here, or at least looked that way. The high, steep mountains surrounding it, the tall buildings resembling beehives, and the Raikage Tower, seemingly built upside down on the side of the tallest mountain around. It was breathtaking. And we're supposed to. For a moment, Naruto felt a pang in his heart. Could he really do what he was supposed to? He knew it was for the good of Konoha, at least Jiraiya had said so, but... Takes your breath away, doesn't it? A man's voice interrupted his thoughts. Naruto jumped despite the good humor he heard in the voice. Had he been discovered already? He turned to see a middle-aged Kumo Chunin standing next to him. First time in the village? The Cloud Ninja asked. Naruto nodded. He didn't quite trust his voice yet. He wasn't being dragged off to the cells yet, so everything was probably still alright, but the effects of the scare were still lingering. We get this reaction a lot, the Kumo Chunin chuckled. Well, enjoy your stay here. Then he slapped Naruto on the back merrily and sent him on his way. The boy walked away in a daze. The Kumo shinobi had actually been nice to him. And he was going to. He didn't want to finish the thought. It was bad enough that he would have to do it soon. Did he really have to? The lives of countless Konoha shinobi depended on it. He had to do it, otherwise many would die. Tenzo, Hana and Hataru might die if he failed here. They could die even if he succeeded, a small voice pointed out. Naruto wished he could tell it to shut up, but he couldn't deny that it was right. He still didn't want to do it, but he had to. He had his orders and he was going to trust his superiors to know what they were doing. Well, he was going to hope they knew it. Back to the mission before someone notices me standing here and finds me suspicious, Naruto thought. He resumed walking down the street, looking for a good place to start. He tried not to think about all the people in the streets, going about their business and looking just like the people in Konoha. It was harder than he had thought, and he quickly realized that he couldn't quite do it. He just repeated to himself that he had to and tried not to think about it much. He wondered how long his resolve would last. A part of him wanted to begin the operation immediately, but he had to wait for Jiraiya's signal. All this would have no purpose if the Toad Sage didn't manage his part of the job. Naruto had no idea how long it was going to take him, but he estimated it would be hours. He had to find a place to wait. He walked through the streets, taking in the sights. The buildings here were different, the fashions were different, but the people weren't. If he closed his eyes, he could think he was in Konoha. And he was supposed to. Could he really do it? It was for Konoha, but suddenly the argument lost weight. He felt he was going to be sick and he hadn't even done anything yet. His feet carried him to a local park. There he sat on an unoccupied bench and stared. He could see two children of perhaps 4 or 5 years playing in a sandbox, their mothers sitting nearby and exchanging gossip, one of them knitting, the other rocking a baby. It was one of the most peaceful sights he had ever seen. And he was supposed to destroy it. Suddenly he felt like the worst trash. He looked away. Just the ninja, Jiraiya had said. But even that didn't make it any better. He could see a genin team, the lot of them probably not even 10 years old yet, picking litter on the far side of the park. He remembered doing a similar mission back when he was still a genin. Just the high-level ninja, he decided. Then he saw 2 teenage chunin, a boy and a girl, the boy inviting her on a date and the girl playing hard to get, but the subtle blush on her cheek suggested that she was going to give in soon. Naruto almost felt sick. "Are you alright?" The boy nearly had a heart attack when the voice spoke right next to him. He thought he had been found out, but it was just a grandmotherly woman with a concerned look on her face. Young girls shouldn't look so morose. "What has you so down?" Naruto fed her a tale about problems with her boyfriend. It sounded completely ridiculous and he was sure he couldn't keep it straight, but the woman just nodded sagely and offered advice to deal with his made-up problem. Naruto got so enthralled in it that he almost forgot the real reason he was here. Then an explosion sounded in the distance and a cloud of smoke rose above the village. Jiraiya. Naruto thought. Now the Gamma Sennin did his part, it was Naruto's turn. He had to provide the distraction. The mission was on and there was no longer any space for hesitation. He jumped from the bench and knocked out the lady that had been talking to him. A quick hand seal and the park was filled with Kage Bunshin. They wasted no time and attacked the closest ninja they could find. As the clones ran into the surrounding streets and the park slowly emptied, Naruto created another batch to replace them. Then he found a place shielded from view and quickly summoned a small toad. It wasn't any good for fighting, but it was going to get him out of here once the Kyumo ninja put together an organized defense. Then there was nothing left to do other than creating more clones and sending them to fight. "Streets of Kyumo, this sucks," Nuki complained loudly as he and his teammates carried heavy bags of groceries towards their client's house. "Why are we stuck doing D-ranks when everybody left for war?" "We are just genin," you reminded him. "We've been genin for over a year now," Nuki pointed out. "Others our age are already at the front lines and we're stuck here. Everybody's gathering experience and fame and we're being errand boys and nannies. It's so unfair." "It might be because of our stellar mission performance," AI suggested sarcastically. "Oh, come on, we didn't fail that many missions," Nuki whined. "But we failed them quite spectacularly," the Kunoichi reminded him. "That was bad luck," Nuki stated. "Otherwise we'd be already chunin." "I wouldn't be so sure about you," you muttered. "But it's the truth," Nuki stated. "How are we supposed to get a promotion if we don't get anywhere near the action? You know, a lot of people would be happy they didn't have to be in the thick of the action," you pointed out. They're cowards. Damn it, I want to see some battle. Almost as soon as Nuki finished his exclamation, the street was suddenly swarmed by dozens of identical young girls. Before the three genin could blink in surprise, they attacked the ninja around them. You just had to say it, I muttered. Kyumogakure Naruto created another wave of clones to replace the one that was currently being destroyed. Kyumo Shinobi had finally gotten over their shock and mounted an organized defense. Now a line of jounin was pushing through his doppelgangers. No matter how many more he created, the clones just weren't powerful enough to stand against the elite of Kyumogakure. It was time to get out of here. He raised his arm to give the sign to the toad accompanying him. But before it could do anything, Naruto startled as the memories of clones being dispelled hit him. He almost missed the warning. So many clones were popping at once that he didn't have the mental capacity to make sense of all their memories. But so many nearly identical memories stood out a bit. Naruto turned around and tried to dodge, but there was no way he could make it. Some big shape encased in lightning flashed next to him, continuing on its way without paying any further attention to him. It was only when Naruto started falling to the ground that he realized he had been wounded. It had happened so fast the pain didn't even register until he hit the ground. But then it struck with a vengeance, as if trying to make up for the lost time. The boy could just stare at the hole in his side. I'm going to die here, he thought when he realized just how big chunk of his body was missing. And there was too much pain to think of much else. But something in him refused to just lie and die. There was a voice growling, snarling. Naruto listened to it. He couldn't think of anything else. He couldn't think of anything. There was just too much pain and he couldn't breathe. His right arm moved on its own, reaching into the stream of his blood. Then there was red heat. Everything still hurt, but he felt detached now, as if it was somebody else's pain. He stood up. The wound in his side wasn't bothering him as much now, it was already closing. He wanted to rip somebody apart, but that was nobody nearby aside from his clones. Then the lightning-encased shape appeared in front of him again. He now recognized it as a man. The man was charging at him so fast. Naruto raised his arms and tails in defense, but he could see that he was too slow. And then the scene suddenly disappeared. There was a flash of colors, some voices calling, beings around him ripped them apart, then there was a shock of pain and then nothing. Kyumo, the devastation all around them was terrible. Though AI had seen worse, this time the destruction happened to Kyumogakure. It was something that was hard to wrap her mind around. How could it have happened? Kyumo was supposed to be secure. So how? If she was superstitious, she'd think that Nuki had called it, but she wasn't. She knew that they were at war and that an enemy attack might happen, but for the hidden cloud village itself to be invaded without any warning, that was unexpected and unbelievable. How could this have happened? She had no idea. But she was just a genin and not a very good one to boot. It was up to the village leadership to figure out how did it happen and prevent it from happening again. The thought that this might happen again sent cold shivers down her spine. If this tragedy repeated. She didn't want to even finish the thought. It looks like they're gone now, she said to the huddled, scared bunch of civilians she had been protecting. The moment she had seen the army of clones appear and the first Chunin to be cut down, she realized they stood no chance. Call her a coward, but she wanted to live. Yet she didn't want to completely abandon her duty to the people of Kyumo. So she helped some civilians frozen with shock to get into a nearby house and stood at guard over them, prepared to protect them if need be. Fortunately they weren't attacked. The enemy was concentrating on ninja. Mostly. Nuki, the hothead that he was, just had to charge in head-on, not even waiting for his teammates to support him. He didn't even get within striking distance. He was hit by a futon jutsu strong enough to pick him off his feet and slam him into a nearby wall. The genin slumped down motionlessly. AI had no idea whether he was alive or not. She was pretty sure that some of the civilians caught in the same blast were dead or at least seriously wounded. Seeing that, Yu, who had been at first determined to do his duty as a Kyumo ninja despite his fear, decided that staying to fight would be suicide and joined AI in protecting the civilians. This way they were both out of harm's way and they could still claim they had fulfilled their duty. So they were cowards, but at least they were living cowards. AI personally preferred that over dead heroes. It seems so, you agreed. The street was quiet except the sound of somebody crying and flames crackling. She couldn't see the source of either sound. Do you think it's safe to come out now? She asked. I think so, you answered. He carefully moved towards the exit. He checked the outside without leaving the cover. The street was empty except for the occasional body. All clear, he said and stepped out. AI followed him. Now she got a really good look on just how much damage the invasion had caused. Even on a street as small as this one, a house had collapsed and another was burning. And there were bodies. Mostly ninja that had tried to stop the attack, but also civilians who had the bad luck to be out when it started. Behind her, AI could hear footsteps as the civilians braved to come out too. There was a desperate wail as one woman recognized her husband among the casualties. That reminded the kunoichi of her hot-blooded teammate. So where was Nuki? If she remembered correctly, he had been flung into that wall over there. Stepping over debris carefully, she headed to where she had last seen her teammate. It took her a while, but she eventually found him under some fallen boards. There was blood on him. Nuki, she said, but he didn't answer. For a moment she feared he was dead and her heart nearly stopped. Then she noticed his chest rising and falling. So at least he was still breathing. But just how serious his condition was? She was no medic and the first aid classes from her academy days were mostly forgotten now. She touched Nuki's head carefully. Her fingers found a bump quickly. Nuki groaned. His eyelids fluttered and then opened. You're all right, she exclaimed. AI? Nuki asked, a bit confused. What's going on? You don't remember? The kunoichi inquired. Her dark-skinned teammate looked thoughtful for a while. Then his face twisted in a snarl as he remembered. Those bastards. I'm going to. He tried to sit up too fast and sunk back to the ground with a pained moan. Be careful, you're wounded, AI scolded him. How bad is it? Nuki wanted to know. I don't know, the girl admitted. Where are those? He couldn't come up with a swear word bad enough. His teammate understood him anyway. They're gone, she answered. I hope, she added after a short pause. I can't just lie here. He tried to sit up again. He succeeded only after AI helped him. Then he finally got a clear view of the disaster zone. His face hardened as he observed the smoking buildings, mutilated corpses, and people looking for their loved ones. And people who had already found them and now were sobbing over their remains. On the other end of the street, Yu was helping two civilian men get a presumably still living body from under the rubble, but considering how big the heap was, the person underneath probably wouldn't survive long. Nuki's fists curled so tight they bled. I'm going to kill him. He didn't have to clarify who he meant. I'm going to kill him dead for what he did. AI just nodded. She felt the same. Even though she knew that they stood no chance, she was willing to do everything in her power to make the monster responsible for all this suffering pay. No matter how long it took. And she knew that everybody in Kyumo was silently swearing the same. Myobokuzan Jiraiya sighed in relief when his feet landed on the familiar ground of Mount Myobokuzan. Legendary ninja he might be, but attacking a whole hidden village with just two people was pushing it even for him. Good thing that the toads were willing to get them out. He had managed to destroy 2 of the assigned targets before Kumo Shinobi formed an organized defense. Then staying became too dangerous. But now they were out of there and safe once again. Mission successful. Now they just had to wait to see if the Hokage learned his lesson and would recall more troops to strengthen Kumo's garrison. Oh, and pray he wouldn't figure out who did it. I can't, a panicked voice cut into his thoughts. He whirled around. Just what was going on? But he's bleeding out, another, equally panicked voice shouted. Who is? Jiraiya wondered. He suddenly had a very bad feeling about this. I know, the first voice exclaimed with a hint of despair. Both the voices sounded familiar to Jiraiya. Now with cold dread welling in the pit of his stomach he raced towards their source. He reached it within seconds and there he saw exactly what he had feared. Naruto lay on the ground unmoving, a pool of blood spreading around him. There was a residue of Kyuubi's chakra in the air, but it was quickly disappearing. The child looked so small and broken that Jiraiya's heart almost stopped. Look what you did. Shima, one of the toads fretting over Naruto, accused Jiraiya. He barely heard it. Tsunade, he said. He needs to get to Tsunade. Tsunade was a great medic. She would be able to save Naruto, right? Yes, let's get him to Konoha. Fukasaku was the first of the toads to calm down and think rationally. There was a flurry of activity and then Naruto's body disappeared, taken away by the summons. Jiraiya just stood there numbly. He got a glimpse of how serious the wound was and he doubted that even Tsunade would be able to save him. But Naruto had to be alright. He just had to. The alternative was unthinkable. He remembered that not so long ago he had repeated the same mantra. Back then he had thought that if he gave Naruto the toad contract, he'd be safe. The toads would save him if something happened. And yet now, after he did so, Naruto was in even more danger and just because of the contract. Without it Naruto wouldn't have been chosen for the mission. In fact, there would probably be no such mission at all. And Konoha would be in trouble because Kumo's forces were pushing into Fire Country. They did what they had to, but was it worth it? His thought process was interrupted by a hit on his head. He looked around, rubbing the now sore spot on his cranium. Ow, he complained to Fukasaku, who now stood on his shoulder, his dreaded stick in his hand. Don't try to look innocent, the sage toad scolded him, looking sterner than Jiraiya had ever seen him. And Fukasaku had looked plenty stern during his sage training. Jiraiya said nothing. He knew from experience that it would bring him only more pain. This is all your fault. Jiraiya's eyes found Shima, who was often on his side when Fukasaku was too harsh with him, but this time her eyes were just as hard as her husband's. I didn't. Jiraiya started but Fukasaku silenced him with a hit on the head. A hard hit. The Sannin hissed in pain. You did, the sage toad stated. You put Naruto in danger. How could you do that to poor little Naruchan? Shima accused. It was an order, Jiraiya answered. And since when do you care about them? Fukasaku questioned. It was for the good of Konoha. After seeing the extent of Naruto's wounds it sounded lame even to him. And just why should we care? Shima spat. You put Naruchan in danger and you abused our contract to do so. She could always make Jiraiya feel like a little boy caught doing something bad. Something really, really bad. Now she turned up the ability to the max, we're ninja of Konoha, Jiraiya pointed out. No, Fukasaku shook his head, you are. We don't have any contract with the village. We're only loyal to our summoners and our only bond with Konoha is through them. Jiraiya realized he didn't know what to say. Then with a loud thud Gamabunta landed next to them. What was it I've heard? The toad boss demanded. Minato's little tadpole was hurt? 3 grim stares were his reply. Jiraiya, what happened? Why didn't you look after him? He endangered him. Shima spoke first. And Naruto-chan is badly hurt now. Pray he survives. That bad? Gamabunta questioned. I've never met the tadpole, but Gamakichi likes him. And he is Minato's little one. And now some harebrained scheme of yours got him hurt? Having the full attention of a pissed-off great battle toad focused on him was a very uncomfortable feeling for Jiraiya. It was all he could do not to run away. I never liked you much, but this is a new low even for you. Sorry, Jiraiya said lamely. The assembled toads were utterly unimpressed. Don't even think of doing something like that again, Gamabunta continued. I won't allow Minato's tadpole to be treated like a weapon again. He deserves better. Minato deserves better. He was a much better man than you. Jiraiya, the toads won't allow such treatment of our summoners. We won't cooperate in something like this again. So don't ever come up with a scheme that requires getting Naruto out of danger through reverse summons. It isn't something that should be used easily. If you do, there will be repercussions. The tone of the last word left the white-haired man in no doubt just how serious the consequences would be. Remember this, Jiraiya, Fukasaku spoke. A summoning contract requires trust on both sides. What you just did. The sage toad shook his head. We can't forget all the good times, but if you go on like this, the bad times might outweigh them. If that happens. Fukasaku didn't finish. He didn't have to. Jiraiya understood what he was threatening and why it was too terrible to say aloud. Breach of contract was a deadly serious business for summoned creatures, and canceling a contract was hardly ever done. It won't happen again, he said with conviction. I swear. I'll make sure of it. It occurred to him that he was promising something he had no means to fulfill. The three toads watched him unblinkingly. It better not, Gamabunta was the first one to speak. Now get lost and don't bother me again. And pray Naruto survives this. With Naruto, the woman opened her mouth and screamed as the wind blade nearly cut her in half. Blood flowed from her wound, dyeing the white flowers on her dress red. Mama, the child of perhaps 4 years standing next to her cried. Mama! Mama! Tears appeared in her eyes. Then they were dried by a blast of wind that slammed into them and blew them away. The child crumpled down next to her mother, both looking like discarded rag dolls. You did this. The boy looked like he had earned his headband last week. But when the attack came, he pulled out 2 kunai from his pouch, and despite the fear clearly written all over his face, he stood his ground, determined to protect his home until his last breath. His wish was granted 5 seconds later when his attempt to block couldn't stop the arms enveloped in whirling wind chakra. He collapsed to the ground to die slowly and in pain, his wounds too serious to be healed by even the best of medics. You did this. The old woman wanted to get out of the way, but her walking stick broke. She collapsed to her hands and knees. She was struggling to make her arthritic joints move and take her into safety when the fire jutsu fanned by a wind jutsu filled the whole street. Her clothes and hair immediately caught fire, leaving her on the ground, unable to even scream, until she died. You did this. No. The ninja was severely wounded. He was probably a chunin, maybe even jounin in rank, but now he was rendered defenseless and harmless by the wounds littering his body. Yet the boy walked over to him and slit his throat with a stolen kunai. You did this. No. It sounded like a plea. The old man obviously used to be a ninja when he had been younger. It was apparent from the way he stood in front of his grandchildren, or great-grandchildren, and tried to force his swollen, uncooperating fingers to form hand seals. He never got the chance to finish them. The blast of slicing wind nearly cut him into ribbons, along with his grandchildren. You did this. No. It sounded desperate. The pair of teenagers was too busy smooching to notice what was going around them. They had only enough time to pull out of their kiss and look around in surprise when the wind chakra-charged kunai pierced both of their chests in one hit. You did this. No. No, please. The voice was now crying. The puppy tried to protect its master and attacked valiantly. It was kicked into the nearest wall so hard it slumped down. Shiro, the boy still holding the empty leash, cried in shock. It was all he had the time to do before he too was hit so hard his bones broke. You did all of this. This voice was firm. No. All the desperation and denial was concentrated in this one sound. The woman collapsed when hit with the wind blade, her shopping bags spilling their contents all around her. This is all your work. You cannot deny it, no matter how hard you try. No. I didn't. I wouldn't. The house collapsed after being hit by the shockwave, burying its inhabitants in its ruins. You would and you did. The voice was relishing in the words. No, the other voice broke in a sob. A baby was crying desperately for a mother who would never come home, her life cut short by a kunai in her heart. You know that you can't lie to yourself. This is all your work. Every single one of them and then some more. There was no answer from the other voice. A house was burning, its inhabitants trying desperately to salvage what they could before the roof would inevitably collapse. 2 were still inside when it gave out. You see? You are a monster. The voice was grinning. The child was picking her doll from the ground, oblivious to the fireball heading for her back. The first voice said nothing. Only 2 glowing red eyes observed the small figure in front of them. The man screamed when the attack tore through his ineffective defenses. The child looked into the giant eyes. I am a monster. Konoha Hospital Tsunade checked the patient's vitals. Finally, he didn't look like he could die any moment, which was a huge improvement from the state he was carried to the hospital in. But he was still very far from being all right. She had seen people die from lesser wounds than he currently sported. She wondered what could have put the child into his current state. He was strong, fast, and he regenerated fast. Even when he ran into a jounin, he could usually hold his own ground until help arrived. So what kind of monster had he faced on his latest mission? She didn't get any report. She usually didn't get much information on what had happened to the patients shipped into her hospital, she was only supposed to treat them. And usually it was all right. Only in rare cases the injury wasn't self-evident and she needed more information to figure out what was wrong. Naruto wasn't the case. The wound in his side was obvious. But she still wanted to know who had hurt her precious little boy, so she could find them and beat them within an inch of their life, then heal them and beat them up again. She wanted to repeat the whole process for days. But she couldn't do it. Naruto needed her more. Even with his injuries healing quickly, he still wasn't out of danger. Tsunade sighed. Being a medical ninja was tough. Sitting back and treating the wounded when she wanted to fight always took almost all of her self-control. But she knew why she had to stay behind. Without her many would have died, including Naruto. And so she stayed by his bedside, checked on his recovery and made idle plans of revenge on whoever had nearly killed him, knowing that she would never enact them. Naruto's mind the demon grinned as he stared through the bars at the young child kneeling on the other side. You see? You are just like me. Naruto didn't answer. The kunai flew through the air, the civilian man could only stare in shock and fear as it neared him, being unable to move a muscle in his terror. It hit him in the neck. You killed so many. The woman lay on the ground, screaming, as she struggled in vain to stop the blood flowing from her thigh in a thick stream. Naruto just sat there, shivering as the memories from his shadow clones played in his mind. You're so good at carnage. A mother was desperately trying to wake her child, lying too still on the cold stones of the street. Naruto grabbed his head, trying to stop the stream of memories. A ninja was trying to stuff his guts back into his stomach. The memories refused to stop. A dozen dead bodies littering the street, burned and smoldering after being hit by the firestorm. We are both monsters, Kyubi smiled. Stop it, Naruto pleaded. I'm not doing anything. The scream was full of inhumane suffering. He ignored it and dashed forward, ready to deliver harm to the next person in line. You enjoyed it, admit it. No, Naruto shook his head desperately. Don't lie to yourself. You're quite good at dealing damage. Even I was impressed. We can enjoy so much bloody carnage together. No. Naruto screamed desperately. Come on, the kitsune prodded. You've already admitted that you're a monster. So what's stopping you? Naruto didn't answer. He just curled into a ball and cried. Konoha Hospital Tsunade checked Naruto's condition again. His wounds were all but gone now. His chakra was still low, but not dangerously so. It was almost close to normal. He could wake up any minute now. In fact, he could have woken up yesterday. But he didn't. There was no medical reason for it, as far as Tsunade could tell. And if even she couldn't find it, then it wasn't there. Because Tsunade was a great medic, even if she said so herself. But if there wasn't a medical reason, then what was preventing Naruto from waking? Before she could investigate the issue deeply, the door to the hospital room opened. She scowled at being disturbed. There's a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door, she barked. Can't you read? I can read quite well, a familiar voice replied with a hint of amusement. Tsunade gasped when she realized who did she just snap at. She whirled around. Sensei. At ease, Tsunade, Sarutobi smiled. So how is he? His tone turned more serious as he looked at the patient. Physically, he's fine, the slug Sannin replied. But, the Hokage prompted. Tsunade sighed. He isn't waking up and I'm not sure why. And his wounds have healed, the Sandaime mused aloud. I've already said so, the busty woman said a bit offended. She couldn't stand it when somebody doubted her medical abilities, even when that somebody was her sensei and Hokage. If the problem isn't his body then it must be his mind, Sarutobi theorized. It occurred to me too, the legendary medic said, but why now? He was wounded severely before, wasn't he? He was, Hiruzen confirmed, but I don't think the shock is due to his injury. Then what? The blonde questioned. Wasn't it just a routine battle? Is any battle ever routine? The third Hokage asked philosophically. And no, this one was different. Weren't you informed? I might have missed the memo, Tsunade replied. The hospital is so busy I rarely have time to sleep, much less read every slip of paper. Care to explain? This was the first time he attacked in a village. You sent him to attack a civilian target, the Sannin was outraged. He's 10. What were you thinking, sensei? The Hokage took an involuntary step back. His old student was scary when she was angry. Right now she was showing how she could scare battalions of enemy shinobi into retreating just by showing up. The Sandaime felt like doing the same. Then he remembered that he was the boss around here and stood his ground valiantly. It wasn't exactly a civilian target. It was Kyumo. Kyumo? The slug Sannin could hardly believe her ears. And the Hokage had to concentrate not to take a step back. He couldn't be terrified of his own genin student. What were you thinking, old man? It's a miracle he's still alive. He was the only one who could pull it off, Sarutobi explained. And Jiraiya was with him. Is that supposed to calm me down? Tsunade growled. By the way, when was your last medical checkup? I don't recall seeing you in here in quite the time. The Hokage paled. Checkups by an angry Tsunade could reduce even the strongest of men to sobbing wrecks. He decided to change the topic quickly, though he didn't really hope that the Slug Princess would forget about the checkup. I think Naruto-kun needs a mind specialist if he indeed is in shock. I agree, Tsunade nodded. I suggest the best from the Yamanaka clan. That's still Anoichi, isn't it? He is, the Sandaime confirmed. Good, the healer nodded. He should be contacted immediately. I'll see to it, Sarutobi said, trying to back off from the room while his old student was distracted. Oh, and sensei, Tsunade called after him, your checkup is tomorrow at 3 a.m. Don't you dare to miss it. The Hokage blanched. He should have known that he couldn't get off the hook so easily. Raikage's office, how did they get in? A asked, interrupting the Jounin giving report on the damage to the village. The Raikage didn't need to hear it to know that it was bad. Sure, it could have been worse, but any damage larger than none was too bad, because it was damage that had happened to the village hidden in the clouds itself. We still don't know, Mabui, his assistant, answered. We're still going through the gate logs. Do we at least know who they were? We don't have a positive identification on them, but one witness reported seeing a frog with one of them. Unfortunately, we have been unable to confirm it, and the witness was drunk at the time. Frogs? A frowned. Who has frog summons? Now if it was toads, but frogs? Well, Mabui shrugged, it could have been toads. The witness weren't entirely sure on the difference. And as I said, he was drunk, so he might have been seeing things. So it was Konoha, the Raikage thundered. I'm going to crush them. Raise them to the ground. You already tried that, a new voice interrupted. The Raikage looked up to see the head of the Yatsuki clan standing in the doorway. He grimaced. Yatsuki-in was the last person he wanted to see right now. Get lost, he barked. I'm not going to leave, the Yatsuki clan head stated, and neither are our problems. Especially not if you continue acting so rashly. Last time it cost us my son and 3 other elite shinobi. This time it cost us this, he pointed out of the window, where the damage dealt to the village was clearly visible. Especially the crater at the spot of the former armory was jarring. What's it going to cost us the next time? Do you really want to weaken the defenses of Kumo even more so we're open wide for another attack? So you would stop our offensive now we're advancing? A questioned. That's cowardly, N. No, that's the sane thing to do, N disagreed. Our offensive isn't going quite as well as you planned. Even with B on the front lines, our forces are still too far from Konoha and the Leafs are holding their ground valiantly. They won't crumble if we press a little harder. We'd just lose countless ninja there. So be a responsible leader for once and strengthen our defenses. Are you saying I'm not a responsible leader? The Raikage asked dangerously. N started sweating under his killing intent. But he refused to back off. This confrontation was too important for it. He had to see it through no matter what. I'm not the only one who thinks so, as you know well. Should I call the council and let all of them speak? The Raikage cursed inwardly. He knew he couldn't prevent a council gathering, not after this disaster. And then all the scaredy cats would make him call off the offensive. And just when they were finally getting somewhere. It was bad. And there was nothing he could do about it. If only he had managed to kill at least one of the attackers, but no. He had noticed he had hit the real body among the flood of clones too late. And before he could remedy his mistake and finish off the brat, he had disappeared in front of his eyes. Reverse summon. Bothersome thing. The brat was wounded severely, but he doubted that it was enough to finish him off. He'd be back. A resolve to kill him the next time he met him. Naruto's mindscape. The small boy lay huddled in front of the demon's cage. The kitsune stood close to the bars, almost leaning over the child. You admitted it yourself, the beast spoke. You are a monster. So why not embrace your nature? It's fun, you'll see. Naruto gave him no response, just lay there motionlessly and cried quietly as more memories paraded through his mind. The man was looking the other way, focused at whatever had caught his attention. His unprotected back presented a perfect target. Naruto wasted no time plunging a kunai into it. A red flower blossomed around the wound as the man fell. See how pretty the blood is? Can you taste its delicious smell? Don't you want to lick it? Kyubi prodded. You can have it. As much as you want and then some more. Naruto just whimpered slightly. The young girl was dressed up for a date. But instead of her beloved she was met by an invading army. She shrieked as they rushed at her. She continued screaming as they trampled her under their feet. Wasn't her shrieking the most beautiful music? Don't you want to hear more of it? A whole symphony of terror and suffering, the Nine Tails tempted. Naruto shook his head. It looked more as if he just trembled. Why are you so stubborn? Why not give in to your urges? Why hold back? Naruto remained silent. Are you perhaps concerned about the people? Why should you? They never cared for you one bit. Don't tell me you don't mind their glares. Naruto remembered the glares. They hurt. Don't tell me you've already forgotten how they tried to kill you. The drunkard wanted to throw him off the Hokage monument, to teach him to fly. He had been so scared. His son then threw a kunai into his unprotected back. It hurt. Don't tell me it didn't hurt when they blamed you for the war. The crowd in front of the Hokage tower started throwing stones. They didn't hurt quite as much as the looks they were shooting him. The words they were shouting. Their demands for his death. Naruto curled more tightly. And after all they did to you, they still demand you fight for them. All the missions he had been ever assigned. All the blood he had ever spilled. They only care about your strength. The attack on Kyumo. Naruto shut his eyes tight, but he couldn't keep the memories away. No, Kyubi grinned, they only care about my strength. You mean nothing to them. The siege of the IWA base in River Country. The demand to use the demon's power. The situation he ended up in. He could have easily died there and nobody would have cared as long as he fulfilled his duty. Don't you want to punish them for that? Don't you want to give them a real reason to fear and loathe you? Don't you want to show them what you can really do? What we can really do? Just release my power and the revenge shall be ours. It's going to taste so sweet. Naruto just trembled. He couldn't deny what the Kyubi said. He wanted revenge on everybody for doing nasty things to him. He wanted revenge on them for making him do nasty things. He wanted revenge for turning him into a monster. But, he thought as he looked at the nine-tailed kitsune, was he a monster this bad? Did he want to be a monster this bad? You know you want to do this, the demon prompted. What are you still waiting for? Naruto didn't answer. It's so easy. Just tear off the seal and they won't hurt you anymore. They won't glare anymore. They won't order you around anymore. Wouldn't that be great? Naruto? A new voice spoke. The boy paid it no attention. It was probably just another memory, though he couldn't place the speaker. The Kyubi no Kitsune did react. He snarled. Who are you? What are you doing here? The demon didn't recognize this long-haired blonde man. The newcomer gave him a wary look, but no answer. He walked over to Naruto, the water covering the ground splashing around his feet. He knelt over the shivering boy. Naruto, he said again, touching his shoulder gently. The child jerked away. What did you do to him? The man turned to the Kyubi. There was a fearful tremble in his demanding voice. Me? Kyubi somehow managed to look like wounded innocence personified. How typical of you. Blame everything on the bijou. What did you do? Inoichi demanded again. It would have sounded better if he could keep the fear out of his voice. As a seasoned jounin and former head of the torture and interrogation squad, he should be able to do it in his sleep. But faced with the angry beast, it was an impossible task. Nothing, the fox shrugged. You did this. Me? Inoichi raised an eyebrow. You humans, the demon elaborated. What do you mean? You should know well. The kitsune was obviously in the mood for riddles. Inoichi wasn't, so he ignored him and focused on Naruto. The boy still didn't make a sound other than quiet whimpering. He also didn't move from his fetal position. Naruto, the Yamanaka asked, touching his shoulder again. And once again the child jerked away as if burned. He didn't want anybody to touch him. He didn't want anybody to be here. He didn't even wonder how did somebody get here. He didn't want to be around people. He didn't know what he might do to them. He was a monster. He would hurt them if they stayed around too long. He wished this man would just go away. But the intruder showed no such intention. He addressed Naruto again. Naruto? It's time to go home. The boy shook his head. He didn't want to go anywhere. He couldn't hurt anyone while he was here. Well, once this man will finally give up and leave. He won't go with you, Kyubi spoke. The water on the ground started splashing slightly, even though there was no wind. Nobody asked you, Inoichi retorted. Then he turned back to Naruto, glancing at the rising waves worriedly. Do you really want to stay here with him? He seems like terrible company. The fox growled. The waves become faster. Naruto hung his head, but he didn't speak a word. You don't like listening to him, do you? Inoichi questioned. Then why don't you come with me? You won't hear him anymore. Kyubi growled again. A thin trickle of red seeped into the water outside the cage. I can't. It was so quiet that Inoichi wasn't sure if he wasn't imagining it. It wasn't what he wanted to hear, but it was the first thing Naruto spoke. It was a beginning. Why not? Inoichi inquired. I am a monster. I can't live among people. I'd just hurt them. The boy was staring at the ground as he spoke. You aren't a monster, Inoichi disagreed. He is, he pointed at Kyubi. You are not. How typical, the kitsune snorted. I am, Naruto insisted. I hurt people. Killed people. Go away or I'll hurt you too. The boy was a sorry sight to behold. He didn't look capable to harm a fly. Still curled into a ball and trembling, he refused to look straight at Inoichi. He was feeding you his bloodlust, Inoichi reasoned. It wasn't really you. So it's, blame the bijou again, the fox scoffed. Honestly, can't you come up with something original? This is getting old. It was all me, Naruto said. I wasn't using his power at all. They were enemies, Inoichi pointed out. They were just people, Naruto countered. Civilians. Not warriors. And I killed them. Old people, men, women, children. All dead. I slaughtered them all. I am a monster. Inoichi sighed. This wasn't going as he wanted it to. Not by a long shot. But what could he expect in the mind of a traumatized 10-year-old killer who happens to have the most powerful demon living inside him? He should be glad he didn't end up dead yet. And considering how much red had seeped into the water around them while he wasn't looking, it might yet happen. He had to finish his task and return soon. Though he knew that such matters couldn't be rushed, he'd have to take the chance. Please, Naruto, come back. We need you, he spoke in his most persuasive voice. You see? Kyubi smirked victoriously. They want you to fight for them again. Your friends miss you. Tsunade-sama is beside herself with worry. Now Naruto looked at him finally. It was another step toward success. Hopefully. I can't, the boy shook his head. I'd just hurt them. So you want to lie here and listen to his drivel until you give in? Inoichi questioned. Naruto jerked. Inoichi spotted his chance. He can be quite persuasive. If you stay here, he'll make you hurt somebody again. The water around his feet flapped around wildly. So he hit a sensitive spot with the kitsune. Baseless accusations, you mortal worm, Kyubi growled. Inoichi paid him no attention. Once you can't hear him anymore, things won't look so bleak any longer. Everything seems much brighter when bathed in the sunlight. So please leave this darkness and come with me and everything will be all right again. He offered Naruto a hand. The boy didn't seem convinced and eyed his outstretched hand warily. Don't go with him, the demon snarled angrily. Naruto's eyes shot to the cage. The demon suddenly looked so very scary. Naruto feared him and wanted to get as far away from him as possible. All other concerns were forgotten for the moment. He took Inoichi's hand and clung to it. The Yamanaka smiled. The fox howled angrily. No. He attacked the bars futilely. Inoichi was already carrying Naruto away. Konoha Hospital. The wait was endless, every minute of it torturous. Tsunade tried to make it feel shorter by pacing around the room and taking the patient's vitals every minute, but it wasn't helping. Neither Naruto nor Inoichi had stirred for, how long was it anyway? Not yet half an hour? That couldn't be right. That clock must be broken. She'd have to send somebody to get a new one. She paced some more and checked the vitals several more times. She glanced at the wall clock again, despite knowing that it was broken. It claimed that merely 3 minutes had passed. It really was going too slow. When she was about to check the vitals again, she noticed some movement. Naruto's eyelids twitched. She leaned close, unsure whether she wasn't imagining things. She wasn't. Naruto's eyes twitched again. He was stirring. Soon he opened his eyes. His wide blues stared into her concerned browns for a few seconds. Then they closed again and Naruto curled up on the bed. Naruto, she called him gently. He gave no response, but she knew that he was awake. Naruto, she called him again. Still nothing. What's wrong? He's still in shock, Inoichi said. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He doesn't want to be around people. He thinks he is a monster because of what happened in Kumo. Tsunade leaned over the curled-up boy and caressed his head gently. Naruto? Can you hear me? You are not a monster. The boy just trembled. The woman realized that he was sobbing quietly. What is it about? She asked quietly. Inoichi briefly hesitated whether he should answer in front of the patient. Then he decided that it wasn't going to make the situation any worse. He thinks he's a monster because he killed people on his last mission. But he's been in many battles, so why now? Tsunade scrunched her brow. She didn't know much about the mission Naruto had been wounded on, just that it was a high-ranked one and took place in Kumo. They weren't shinobi. Inoichi explained. What? Tsunade blinked. Sensei sent a kid on an assassination mission? She mentally amended the list of procedures she was going to perform during the Hokage's scheduled physical. I think it was worse than that, the Yamanaka clan head replied. Worse? Just what can be worse? Now the Sannin was leaking killing intent. I'm not sure, Inoichi answered, inching away from her. But Tsunade didn't pay him attention anymore. She walked over to Naruto's bed and ruffled his hair. You aren't a monster, Naruto. Never believe that, she tried to reassure him, but the killing intent ruined the effect. Now rest well, I'm going to have a few words with Sensei about this. Then she strode out of the room purposefully. Inoichi felt a stab of pity for the Hokage. When the Slug Princess was in this mood, nobody was safe from her. That left him alone with Naruto. He knew he should do something for the boy, but he wasn't sure what. He didn't know enough about the problem, and taking a guess always carried the risk of getting it wrong. And considering how fragile Naruto's mental state currently was, a single ill-chosen word might break him completely. As Konoha's foremost expert on human psychology, Inoichi knew it well. And silence could be just as devastating. He truly wished he didn't have to be in this situation, but he was glad that when it happened, he was there. Anybody else might make an even bigger mess of things. He laid a hand on Naruto's shoulder reassuringly. The boy jerked away. "I won't hurt you," Inoichi said, keeping his voice low and warm. His only response was a sob from Naruto. "And don't worry about hurting me," he added. Now the boy stiffened. "I can take care of myself. I'm a jounin after all." Naruto didn't reply to this one. Inoichi pondered what else could he say. "Whatever you're going through, you aren't in it alone," was what he settled on in the end. Naruto still didn't answer. When Inoichi looked closely, he realized that the boy had drifted asleep. Perhaps that was for the best, even if his sleep was going to be plagued by nightmares. The Yamanaka considered whether he should watch over him and wake him as soon as the bad dreams would hit, but he couldn't afford to stay for so long. He had a lot of important things to do, just as every high-ranked ninja in Konoha. And so with a sigh he left the room and closed the door behind him silently. Naruto slept on. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.